Do you have a lot of weight to lose and you want to know the easiest way to lose it? As tempting as quick fix diets are, those aren't the key to long-term weight loss. Losing 100 pounds or even just 10 to 15 pounds, it all comes down to your daily habits. Let's talk about 6 daily habits I follow to lose 100 pounds. The first habit change I made was I started every day with a healthy habit. Now, in my case, I found it easiest to start the day with some sort of activity. So, something like walking or even getting my resistance training workout done first thing. Since my body was already trained to wake up bright and early after having kids, once my kids were old enough to have more independence in the morning, I took advantage of those early hours of being the first person awake and I got my workout out of the way right away. That way, there were no excuses later in the day because I was tired or the day just got too busy to work out. Now, back when I began this habit, getting a workout in meant I jumped on the elliptical first thing. These days, depending on my schedule, I either start the day with a walk or I get resistance training done. And since I've trained my body to fast in the morning, there's not really much standing in the way between me and finishing my workout bright and early. Also, if getting more activity is on your health bucket list, but you just can't seem to get with the program, getting your workout done within the first 8 hours of the day is the best way to form this new habit. According to Dr. Huberman, forming habits that are difficult to stick with are best accomplished within the first 8 hours of waking. Of course, if you're not able to walk or work out first thing, then figure out another morning healthy habit. That way, you always start your day on the right foot. Always having a breakfast centered around protein, or even taking time to plan out your meals for the day, are both great morning habits that you can consider. The second habit I changed to lose 100 pounds is I centered every meal around protein. Now, we just talked about how making a breakfast that's high in protein is important. If you want to lose weight and actually keep it off this time, making protein the base of every meal is just as important. That's because protein is the most filling macronutrient, which means the more protein you eat, the less overall calories that you'll consume during the day. And eating less than what you burn is an important factor of weight loss. Protein is also important since getting enough protein helps you keep and build lean muscle. And the more lean muscle you have, the higher your metabolism is. And having a higher metabolism helps with the calories outside of the calories in versus calories out equation. Now, it's especially important to skip the donuts, bagels, and cereals at breakfast and instead start the day with a meal that's high in protein. And that's because when you start the day with a carb-heavy meal, this can set you up for uncontrollable blood sugar swings all day long. And these swings will lead to cravings and hunger that make it sticking with a calorie deficit nearly impossible. And if you're the type of person who cuts yourself some slack on the weekends or maybe even holidays, if you want to set yourself up for more success, then quit that mindset right now. At a very minimum, you still want to focus on a protein-heavy breakfast. If you have a little room at the end of your meal for a pancake or a pastry, maybe just try having a few bites and see if that's enough to settle your cravings. This is an especially important tip for weekends because guess what? They happen every single week. And blowing off your plan for 1 or 2 days can mean the difference between consistent progress or a big fat weight loss stall. The third habit I changed to lose 100 pounds is I swapped out heavily processed junk foods for more real foods. While maybe this seems obvious, I don't think everyone understands the difference between whole, real foods and processed junk. Processed foods are anything that comes in a box or a package, and yes, this does include treats that state keto-friendly or low-calorie on the package. Even though food manufacturers design their packages to make these foods seem like they fit into your plan, heavily processed foods are also engineered to have you eat more. In fact, studies show that those who include too many highly processed foods in their diets actually eat 600 more calories per day than those who focus mostly on whole foods. I'm not saying that you can't eat any processed foods if you want to lose weight, because you can, and I actually do. But I found the most success when I eat somewhere around 80 to 90% of my diet from whole foods, things like meat, veggies, fruit, eggs, and cheese. And these are the single food ingredients that I combine to make a meal. And this approach, it just works way better than letting food manufacturers combine these staple foods with other less than optimal ingredients and chemicals that are going to lead to overeating. These days, if I want more of a processed treat, something like dark chocolate or chips and salsa, I usually wait until the end of the day. And this is because I've already nurtured my body with a lot of nutritious foods by then, so it's less likely that any treat that I do have is going to spike my hunger or result in some kind of food binge. I also carefully fit these foods into my macros so that I don't end up overeating. If I don't have any calories left over by the end of the day or my protein is just too low, well, then my treat is just going to have to wait until tomorrow night. And while I do eat some bread or low carb tortillas earlier in the day, I've taken time to find the kinds that don't lead to hunger for me. So if you want to include more of these foods in your plan earlier in the day, just take time to assess if the meals that include the processed foods lead you to overeat later in the day. And if they do, it's definitely something you're going to want to avoid. The fourth habit I changed to lose 100 pounds is I tracked every meal. While I have been tracking my meals since the days that you had to look up calorie counts in a book, yes, I have been at this for quite a long time, I was never really as consistent as I should have been in order to get long-term results. Now, a lot of times I'd start the day strong by tracking breakfast, but by lunch or maybe by dinner, I'd find myself winging meals and just kind of guessing at the calories. And while that can be a great strategy for weight maintenance, if you still have a lot of weight to lose and you're not making the progress you want, then tracking every meal is important. Yes, that means you should track dinner. Yep, even if it's a restaurant meal where you don't know the exact calories, it's still important to take your best guess. And yes, even on holidays, I still track what I eat. The main reason I became so strict with tracking, even on weekend nights and holidays, is I noticed that when I allowed myself time off tracking, I also allowed myself to overindulge. And all of those small indulgences start to add up to stalled progress. Since consistent weight loss depends on consistent habits, like consistently tracking every meal, I finally started getting the results I wanted when I forced myself to track every single meal. I also learned that the meals I'd previously blown off tracking, well, those were typically the meals that I didn't want to track because I knew that they'd be higher in calories. So it really was a way of not sticking to the accountability that is necessary to get consistent results. When I struggled with some regained weight between 2019 and 2022, I wasn't tracking as consistently as I should have been. Now, some days were fully tracked, but there were plenty of days that were only halfway tracked or even left blank. But once I got this habit down this past July and I made a really good effort, that's when I was able to finally get back on track. And since I am down nearly 40 pounds, and this is after I thought nothing would work after I hit 40. The fifth habit I changed to lose 100 pounds is I quit my all or nothing diet mentality. If you're a yo-yo dieter like I used to be, how many times have you started a diet, then you make even a minor mistake, and this results in you throwing your arms up in the air and saying, screw it, I might as well just eat junk for the rest of the day. Or, like a lot of yo-yo dieters do, you just keep eating crap all weekend, vowing to start back on track on Monday. This same all or nothing diet mentality kept me stuck in yo-yo diets for decades. And while part of it was yes, I needed a big mindset shift, another part of it is that I was eating so little during the week in order to rush the process that my physiology took over on the weekends. Plus, I was eating a lot of junky diet foods and not really a lot of whole foods that would help me feel full. Now, all of this led to me binging on all of the junk foods that I could shovel in just so my body didn't feel like it was constantly starving. And of course, I blame myself for being weak. And while in reality it actually was my fault, it wasn't because I was weak. It was because I was just being way too strict during the week, which resulted in what seemed like a never-ending diet that I needed to escape on the weekends. And once I learned how to actually nourish my body with more nutrient-dense foods, as well as enough food, that helped me get out of this all or nothing diet mentality. Of course, I still had to adjust my mindset to think that one screw up doesn't mean that I need to throw out the entire diet and start fresh. It just meant that I made one choice that took me a little bit off track, but as long as I got right back on track with my next choice, then there really wasn't a whole lot of damage done, if any. When you have a lot of weight to lose, it's important to realize that being consistent is going to take you much further than being perfect. Finally, the sixth habit I had to change in order to lose 100 pounds and keep it off is I had to quit making excuses. With holidays and weekends and other various life events, it seems like there's constantly a reason to blow your diet. Let's take the holiday season as an example. First, there's Halloween, which who can resist shoving in bite-sized candy bars during the weeks leading up to Halloween? And then there's Thanksgiving, a holiday that is completely centered around food, followed by not only Christmas, but you have the entire Christmas season where there are just calorie bombs hidden around every single corner. And then you have New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Valentine's Day. Before you know it, McDonald's is bringing back Shamrock Shakes. And then you have Easter sneaking into your kid's Easter basket. And these are just the holidays. Let's not forget about birthdays, anniversaries, dinner out with friends, and other life events. And with so much to celebrate, it seems like we're just doomed to this life of gluttony and plus size pants. But the only way to get around all of this overeating that society sets us up for is to just quit making excuses. You need to realize that we are all busy people and we are all faced with these choices. And whether you progress on your plan comes down to making more of the right choices more consistently. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate your kid's birthday with a piece of cake or you can't sample a mini candy bar or two on Halloween. It just means that you have to make more right choices when you're faced with celebrations, so that way you're properly nourished before you give in to any of those treats. Now, when your body is nourished with all of the right nutrients, you'll be less likely to end up binging on all of the high calorie treats that you could shove into your mouth, and maybe you'll take it easy with just 1 or 2 quick bites. This way, it will be easier to quit making excuses and instead put in the work that you need to, even on holidays or during other celebrations that are continually popping up. So those are the 6 habits that I had to change in order to lose 100 pounds and the habits that I still follow today in order to keep the weight off. If you're considering changing any of these habits, just keep in mind that you don't have to change them all at once, and doing so could actually derail your progress. Even just starting with changing one of these habits will lead to more progress on your weight loss diet. In the meantime, if you want help with a plan and the accountability you need to accomplish your big goals, I'll add my coaching link to the description. You can also get my 5 weight loss tips for women over 40 at eatingfatisthenew.com/tips.